We want to take you back to Cleveland. Josh Elliott is at the Republican National Convention with new developments. Josh?
Thank you, Meg. Here in Cleveland on this day one of the Republican National Convention, we're now learning more about Donald Trump and his possibly conflicting beliefs with his newly minted running mate, Indiana Governor Mike Pence. Trump has blasted Hillary Clinton for voting to authorize the war in Iraq, but he is giving Pence a pass for doing the very same thing. Leslie Stahl of 60 Minutes asked the two of them about the war on terror last night in their first joint interview.
Now look, we are going to get rid of ISIS, big league, and we're going to get rid of them fast. And we're going to use surrounding states, we're going to use NATO, probably. And we're going to declare war. It is war. When the World Trade Center comes tumbling down with thousands of people being killed, people are still, I have friends that are still suffering the effects.
If you remember, we went to Iraq.
Yeah, you went to Iraq, but that was handled so badly. And that was a war, by the way. That was a war that we shouldn't have done because Iraq did not knock down, excuse me, Iraq did not knock down. I don't care. If he wrote it.
You said it was bad judgment.
I was against it all the time. I was against it from the beginning. Iraq did not knock down the World Trade Center.
I want to talk about
reasonable people, and look, I respect Donald Trump's view of that, and history will be a judge. But I think what we agree on completely is that when President Obama made a decision to pull all American forces out of Iraq without a status of forces agreement, he created the instability in which ISIS was able to be created.
Everybody agrees on that.
And the leadership that he'll provide on the global stage is to confront exactly what resulted from the failed policies of this administration.
We have to move on, and we're not going to get to your...
Interesting subject.
Except for one thing. Go ahead. What do you mean you don't care that he voted?
It's a long time ago. And he voted that way, and they were also misled. A lot of information was given to people, but I was against the war in Iraq from the beginning. Now, I was a civilian, so people didn't care that much. I mean, you know, what difference? But I was against because I said it was going to destabilize the Middle East. But if you really look at it, Iraq did knock down, they didn't knock down the World Trade Center. It wasn't Iraq. It was others.
Yeah, but you used that vote of Hillary's, that was the same as Governor Pence.
Many people
as the example of her bad judgment.
Many people have, and frankly, I'm one of the few that was right on Iraq.
Yeah, but what about he?
Okay. He's entitled to make a mistake every once in a while.
But she's not. Okay, come on.
But she's not.
She's not.
No, she's not.
Okay, got it.
Here with me now to discuss Katrina Pierson, the Trump campaign national spokesperson. Next to her, CBSN political contributor and former John McCain campaign manager, Rick Davis. Katrina, a rather stunning answer for some establishment types, if nothing else, with regard to the Iraq war vote. So I want to ask you, why is Hillary Clinton then held to a higher standard than Donald Trump's own running mate?
Well, Mr. Trump has already said that he made his pick not as a carbon copy of himself, but to unify the party. And that's exactly what that choice was about. And that is something that they've obviously discussed. And as you've heard, Governor Pence has agreed that they disagreed on that initially. The reason why Hillary Clinton is held to that higher standard is simply because it wasn't just her vote in Iraq. I mean, she has supported every failed measure in the Middle East up until this day. She is responsible for Libya. She has supported the issues in Egypt. And it's just getting worse. And her response to the latest terror attacks is, we need intelligence. She was Secretary of State, for crying out loud, even when General Gates said, NATO needs help. We don't have the resources. We just can't function this way anymore, and warned the United States and everyone else that we can't continue to go this way with NATO. But she continues to support the same failed measures, and her responses are, well,
but Donald Trump has hammered her for that vote specifically, and he now has a running mate who voted the same way.
Absolutely. Again, this was to unite the party. Donald Trump did not want someone that was going to be a carbon copy of him. He wanted someone that would support his policies, which Governor Pence has said he does. And he has given a pass to the governor for that vote, considering the information that Donald Trump said. There wasn't all the information there at the time. These individuals were not responsible. And so, yes, he is definitely, he has Governor Pence on the ticket to unify the party. They do agree with where we want to move forward in the Middle East, including reforming NATO, and move forward and actually get out of the Middle East, end terrorism, and get back on track.
But, Rick, there is a certain irony that he would take as a running mate somebody so diametrically opposed to his own viewpoints on so many fundamental issues like trade, like immigration, in an effort to unify the party?
Well, I think it's important to note that his views on sort of those issues are very different than the very bulk of the Republican Party, right? So if you were looking for a candidate to mirror his views, you were going to have a hard time finding one who's an elected official, who's been in the Republican Party, and serving, in an elected capacity for the last 15, 20 years. So I don't think it's a fair choice, right? I mean, the top of the ticket, the nominee of the party sets the pace and the tone and the issues for the campaign. It doesn't really matter what anybody else says. The party has a platform that's different than Donald Trump's views. He's not running on that platform. He's running on his presidential campaign platform that mirrors his views and what got him the nomination to this point. And so anybody he would have picked is probably going to have a different viewpoint than he does on Iraq, because he was one of the very few people who opposed his own party's sort of orthodoxy on this issue. So that was going to happen. I mean, you never have a vice presidential nominee who is the exact reflection of you in the mirror as the nominee of the party. And you don't want that, because what are you doing to broaden the base of support? What are you doing to reach out to constituencies that don't necessarily agree with you? You have to show that you can be inclusive, and in fact, that's what he's done here. So sure, it's painful. The gears grind, you smell that metal, it's not pleasant, but that's the process we're going through this week, is making those gears mesh. And when people leave here, different from when they arrived, they'll try to make sure that they're all on the same page.
And he did say, again, Mike Pence, he said it in introducing the Indiana governor as his running mate, he was my first choice. And yet there has been much reporting that suggests that Donald Trump was waffling well into the evening prior, perhaps wanting to name Chris Christie instead. People have joined us today, party commentators who have said it was capitulation. You said it was to unify the party. Perhaps that you could read that also as capitulating to a need rather than going with his gut. It is something that Donald Trump has said he has done time and again, relied on his gut. It would seem that this choice then perhaps runs counter to what got him here.
No, not at all. And look, the reporting has been wrong since the beginning on Donald Trump. I think we can all agree with that. And everyone's going to speculate, and it doesn't really matter what decision Donald Trump makes. You're going to have the media and the talking heads run contrary to what he wanted. He made his decision. There was no wanting to change the mind. He had already said that he was considering several people. He had met with several people, and he really wanted to make a decision that he felt would best move forward what he wanted to do and unifying the party. See, unifying the party is the one thing that Mr. Trump committed to, particularly after signing that pledge, which others didn't follow their own pledge. And the reason why Donald Trump had 10 million votes and broke record turnout in Republican primaries is because the party was not representing the people. So this idea that somehow Donald Trump is contrary to the party, I mean, it's really absurd at this point, because the voters on the Republican side have felt abandoned. And now we see that on the Democrat side. So what we have now is an opportunity with a candidate like Donald Trump, who is saying, look, I'm going to support you. I want to do what's best for you with regards to education, immigration, national security, special interests aside. And now we have a candidate that can bring in more people.
Okay, he wants to unify the party and perhaps assuage fears of the establishment, and yet the last two Republican presidents will not be here. The last two Republican nominees will not be here. The sitting Republican governor of the state of Ohio will not be here. Many of the rising stars of this party will not be here. So what party is it that he's unifying?
The rising star of the Republican Party is Donald Trump, and he will be here. And I think the fact that some of those individuals that you named not being here proves my point. Donald Trump is not that establishment politician that is beholden to the chamber, that is beholden to special interests and lobbyists and the globalist corporations that are trying to circumvent national sovereignty for their own interests. That's proof. And that's what I'm saying. We now have an opportunity to have a candidate of the people to go to the public, provide his vision, and say, let's just get back to the basics. Let's get back to common sense governing and make America great again.
But those are not best case scenario optics, Rick. And this is a 4-day event that is about optics as much as anything.
Yeah.
And about selling an idea and telling a story. And if the story involves unifying the party, if he has said that is the point, What is the impact of that collective absence?
Well, I think Paul Manafort mentioned yesterday, Major Garrett was talking about this earlier, Josh, that now's the time to get on board. Otherwise, the train has left the station and you will be off of it. And I think that's really the transition of what's happening this week. The reality is that Donald Trump's basis of his message to the American people is, I'm not Washington. I'm going to change Washington. I'm the only guy who can because I'm not invested with any of those guys. So the fact that a lot of Washington, you know, the people you described would be considered Washington types, the fact that they're not coming is just fine with him, right? Because it sort of reinforces the message he's making, which is I'm not one of them, and I'm not going to be one of them.
Would he prefer to not have John McCain's endorsement?
Yeah,
I don't prefer to not have Mitt Romney's endorsement.
I don't think he wakes up every day worried about their endorsement, right? I mean, I don't think it even factors into the equation for him. Because remember, the number one message that got him the nomination is I'm not one of them. And so what would I need them for? When I was running the McCain campaign, I never wanted John McCain on a stage with someone who had less favorable image than him, which meant he was there alone a lot, because most Republicans are net negative to a lot of voters who are swing voters. And I think this is just a personification of that message. If I have to go it alone, because I'm the only one who's not locked into the business as usual, Washington do nothing, Congress and administration, then that's the way I got to go.
And thus it begins. Rick Davis, Katrina Pierson, great to have you both.
Thank you.
Thanks.